The Lost City Mystery. Chapter 1. The Hidden Map. Emma Carter was not an ordinary girl. At the age of 22, she had already traveled to more than 15 countries, exploring ancient ruins, lost temples, and hidden caves. She was fascinated by history, adventure, and, most importantly, solving mysteries. One evening, as she was studying an old book in her grandfather's library, she discovered something unusual. Tucked between the dusty pages of a forgotten manuscript was a fragile, yellowed map. The edges were torn, and the ink had faded, but one thing was clear. It was a map of an unknown city. Emma's heart pounded with excitement. Could this be the legendary lost city of Eldoria? According to myths, Eldoria was an ancient civilization rich in gold and knowledge, hidden deep within the Amazon rainforest. Many explorers had searched for it, but none had returned with proof of its existence. She quickly pulled out her phone and called her best friend, Jake Reynolds, an expert in decoding ancient texts and symbols. "Jake, I need you to come over right now," Emma said breathlessly. "Emma, it's almost midnight. What's so urgent?" Jake replied, half asleep. "I found something big." Jake knew Emma well enough to understand that if she said it was big, it had to be important. 15 minutes later, he arrived at her house, still in his pajamas. Emma laid out the map on the wooden table, pointing to strange markings and faded lines. Jake adjusted his glasses and studied it carefully. This is incredible," he whispered. "Where did you find this?" "In my grandfather's old book," Emma said. "He was an archaeologist, remember? Maybe he found this during one of his expeditions." Jake nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to verify if this is real." The two friends spent hours researching, comparing the map with other historical records. By dawn, their conclusion was clear. This map could lead them to Eldoria. "We have to go," Emma declared. "We might be the first people in history to set foot in the lost city." Jake hesitated. "Emma, this could be dangerous. The Amazon is full of risks. Wild animals, unpredictable weather, and we don't even know if the map is complete." Emma's eyes sparkled with determination. "That's what makes it an adventure." Jake sighed but grinned. "All right, I'm in, but we need a proper plan." The two spent the next few days gathering supplies. Emma researched the best routes into the rainforest, while Jake made copies of the map and cross-referenced it with satellite images. They knew they needed a guide, so they contacted Marco, an experienced explorer who had spent years navigating the Amazon. "Are you sure about this?" Marco asked when they met him in a small cafe. "Many have searched for Eldoria, but none have succeeded." Emma nodded. "That's why we have to try." Marco studied them for a moment before finally saying, "All right, I'll take you as far as I can, but if things get too dangerous, we turn back." The day of departure arrived. Emma, Jake, and Marco boarded a small plane that took them to the edge of the rainforest. As they stepped into the dense jungle, the sounds of wildlife surrounded them. The adventure had begun. Little did they know, they were not the only ones searching for Eldoria. In the shadows, someone else had been watching them. Chapter 2. Into the Jungle. The moment Emma, Jake, and Marco stepped into the thick jungle, they felt an immediate change in the atmosphere. The air was humid, filled with the scent of wet leaves and exotic flowers. Strange noises echoed from all directions. Birds calling, insects humming, and the distant growls of unseen creatures. Emma adjusted her backpack and took a deep breath. All right, let's follow the map and stick to the path as best as we can. Marco led the way, using his machete to cut through the dense vegetation. The journey was slow and exhausting. Sweat dripped from their foreheads as they navigated the uneven terrain. They encountered steep hills, muddy swamps, and giant tree roots that twisted like enormous serpents. A few hours into the trek, Jake suddenly stopped. "Wait, I think I see something ahead." They pushed forward carefully and found an ancient stone marker, partially buried under vines. It was covered in strange carvings, eerily similar to the symbols on their map. As they continued, the jungle seemed to grow darker, the thick canopy blocking out much of the sunlight. Marco glanced around, his expression tense. "We need to be careful. There are things in this jungle we don't want to meet." Just as he finished speaking, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the trees, sending a chill down their spines. "What was that?" Jake asked, gripping his backpack straps tightly. Before Marco could answer, a figure leaped from the shadows. A massive jaguar, its golden eyes locked onto them. Emma's heart pounded. Nobody move. The jungle had just shown them its first challenge. Chapter 3. The Jungle's Secret. The jaguar stood motionless, its sharp eyes fixed on them. Marco, with years of experience in the jungle, slowly reached into his bag and pulled out a flare. He struck it against a rock, igniting a bright red light. The jaguar snarled, momentarily distracted by the fire. "Back away, slowly," Marco whispered. The three cautiously stepped backward. The jaguar growled but didn't pursue. Finally, it disappeared into the dense foliage. "That was close," Jake exhaled. They pressed on, following the ancient path. Soon, they stumbled upon a hidden waterfall cascading into a crystalline pool. Carvings on the rocks depicted scenes of a great civilization, confirming that they were getting closer to Eldoria. Emma traced her fingers over the carvings. "These symbols, they tell a story of a lost kingdom, protected by guardians." Jake analyzed the markings. "It mentions a trial of wisdom before one can enter the city." As they explored, the ground beneath them suddenly collapsed, sending them tumbling into darkness. They landed in an underground cavern, illuminated by glowing blue fungi. Emma groaned, sitting up. "Is everyone okay?" Marco lit a torch. "Looks like we found something, or something found us." The cavern stretched into the unknown, with tunnels leading in multiple directions. Strange echoes filled the air. Jake gulped. "Looks like we're in the trial now." The adventure had taken a dangerous turn. Chapter 4. The Trial of Eldoria. The underground cavern was vast, with ancient murals lining the stone walls. The eerie glow of bioluminescent fungi illuminated the path ahead. Emma, Jake, and Marco stood in awe, realizing they had stumbled upon something far greater than they had imagined. Marco turned to Emma. "This must be the entrance to Eldoria." Emma nodded. "But it looks like we have to pass a test first." As they stepped forward, the ground trembled again. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and a voice echoed through the chamber. "To enter Eldoria, you must prove your worth." Suddenly, 3 stone doors appeared before them, each with a different symbol: a sun, a serpent, and an eye. They had to choose wisely, or risk being trapped forever. Marco examined the symbols carefully. The sun represents wisdom, the serpent represents cunning, and the eye represents knowledge. We must select the right path. Emma touched the sun symbol. The door slowly creaked open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with ancient traps and puzzles. They had entered the first trial. As they moved forward, the torches along the walls flickered to life, casting eerie shadows. The first challenge was a massive stone slab blocking their way. On its surface, intricate carvings displayed a puzzle in the form of ancient numbers and letters. Jake studied it carefully. It's a riddle. We need to align the symbols correctly to unlock the path. Minutes turned into an hour as Jake worked through the puzzle, his fingers tracing the markings. Emma helped by recalling patterns they had seen in their research. Finally, with a decisive click, the slab slid open, revealing the next chamber. The second trial was far more dangerous. The room was filled with stone platforms suspended over a pit of darkness. Some platforms were crumbling, while others looked sturdy. There must be a pattern, Marco said. He tossed a small rock onto one of the platforms. It crumbled instantly. Emma observed the ceiling, noticing faded inscriptions. Look, the safe path is marked above. Using the clues, they carefully leaped from platform to platform. Jake nearly slipped, but Marco caught him just in time. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the other side. The final chamber was the most mysterious. A golden pedestal stood in the center, holding an ancient artifact, a small crystal orb glowing with blue light. Inscribed on the walls were depictions of past explorers, their fates unknown. Emma stepped forward. This must be the final test. A voice echoed around them. To claim the key to Eldoria, one must face their greatest fear. Suddenly, the room changed. The walls dissolved, and each of them found themselves in separate visions of their deepest fears. Emma stood alone in a storm, her compass broken, completely lost. The fear of failure weighed heavily on her. Jake was surrounded by collapsing walls, the fear of being trapped overwhelming him. Marco faced a shadowy figure from his past, a mistake that haunted him. Realizing the illusions, Emma steeled her nerves. This isn't real. I control my fear. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, breaking the illusion. The others did the same, forcing themselves to overcome their greatest doubts. As they emerged from the visions, the orb pulsed brightly. The voice spoke again. You have proven yourselves worthy. The ground rumbled, and a hidden passage opened before them. Eldoria was within their grasp. Emma took the orb, feeling its warmth. We did it. We're one step closer. They climbed the staircase, unaware of the shadows watching them from the darkness. Chapter 5. The Secrets of Eldoria. As Emma, Jake, and Marco ascended the ancient staircase, the glow from the crystal orb illuminated their path. The air grew warmer, thick with the scent of moss and aged stone. With each step, their anticipation grew. What lay beyond this passage? Would they truly uncover the lost city of Eldoria? At the top of the stairs, they reached a towering stone doorway, covered in intricate carvings that depicted scenes of an ancient civilization. Emma traced the engravings with her fingers. These people, they were advanced, she whispered in awe. Look at these symbols. They resemble a language we haven't seen before. Marco pressed his hand against the door. Let's see if our key works. Emma held up the glowing orb. As if sensing its presence, the door trembled, and then, with a deep, echoing groan, it slowly slid open, revealing a breathtaking sight. Before them lay Eldoria. The city stretched as far as the eye could see, its towering structures adorned with gold and emeralds, shimmering under beams of unnatural light. Waterfalls cascaded down walls, feeding into crystal-clear rivers that wound through the city. The streets were lined with statues of figures in regal attire, their expressions frozen in time. Above, a massive domed ceiling sparkled as if filled with stars, though they were deep underground. "This is unbelievable," Jake breathed. "It's intact, an entire city hidden beneath the jungle." The three adventurers stepped forward cautiously. Though the city appeared abandoned, it was eerily well preserved, as if waiting for their arrival. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the distant trickling of water. As they walked further into the city, they reached what seemed to be a grand plaza. In its center stood a colossal obelisk covered in strange inscriptions, glowing faintly with a golden hue. Emma examined the base of the obelisk. "These symbols match the ones on the orb," she said. "Maybe it's some kind of power source?" Before they could investigate further, a deep voice echoed through the air. "Who dares enter the sacred grounds of Eldoria?" Emma, Jake, and Marco spun around, their eyes widening in shock. From the shadows emerged a group of figures, clad in ancient robes, their eyes glowing an eerie blue. They moved with an ethereal grace, their presence both intimidating and mesmerizing. "We mean no harm," Emma spoke, her voice steady despite the fear creeping into her heart. "We're explorers. We followed the map, solved the trials. We only seek knowledge." The tallest of the figures stepped forward. His robes were more ornate, embedded with golden embroidery. "You have passed the trials of wisdom, courage, and knowledge," he said. "But knowledge comes at a price. Do you seek to learn or to take?" Emma exchanged glances with her friends. "We seek to learn." The robed figures studied them for a long moment before the leader nodded. "Then you shall see." With a wave of his hand, the obelisk pulsed with energy. The city around them flickered, and suddenly visions appeared, ghostly images of Eldoria's past. They saw scholars writing on grand scrolls, inventors crafting strange machines, and healers curing illnesses with glowing herbs. It was a society of intellect and harmony. But then, the visions darkened. Greedy invaders came, seeking the city's power. War erupted, buildings crumbled, and the once thriving civilization was forced to retreat underground. The last of the Eldorians sealed themselves away, protecting their knowledge from the outside world. "The world was not ready for what we had to offer," the leader said solemnly. "And so, we chose to remain hidden." Marco stepped forward. "But the world has changed. Knowledge like yours could benefit so many." The leader sighed. "Perhaps, but it could also destroy. The choice is yours. Do you take what you have learned and share it, or do you leave this place untouched as it has remained for centuries?" Emma felt the weight of history pressing down on her. She looked at Jake and Marco, then back at the leader. "We will honor your legacy," she said, "but we will not take what does not belong to us." The leader studied her, then smiled faintly. "You are wiser than most." He lifted his hand once more, and the city began to shimmer. The glowing inscriptions dimmed, and the obelisk pulsed one final time before fading into darkness. Emma, Jake, and Marco felt a strange force pulling them backward. Before they could react, they were standing outside the cavern entrance, the stone doorway now sealed shut behind them. The jungle air filled their lungs once more. The city was gone. Jake looked down at his hands. Did that really happen? Emma opened her backpack. The crystal orb was gone, but in its place was a small golden inscription, a single phrase in the ancient language of Eldoria. She smiled. It happened. Marco exhaled, running a hand through his hair. We found the lost city, and we let it stay lost. They stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the weight of their journey. Then Emma grinned. Well, looks like we have a lot to write about. As they made their way back through the jungle, the mystery of Eldoria remained safe once more, hidden from the world, waiting for the day when humanity would be truly ready for its secrets.